Welcome to Murder Mile, a true crime podcast, an audio-guided walk featuring many of London's untold, unsolved, and long-forgotten murders, all set within and beyond the West End. Today's episode is about soldiers and sex workers. Two ancient trades intrinsically linked, especially during wartime. And although, if people were created equally, a price would never be put on a person's life, we clearly value those who fight over those who fuck. Murder Mile is researched using authentic sources. It contains moments of satire, shock, and grisly details. And as a dramatization of the real events, it may also feature loud and realistic sounds, so that no matter where you listen to this podcast, you'll feel like you're actually there. My name is Michael. I am your tour guide. This is Murder Mile. Episode 139, The Fall of Peggy Richards. Today, I'm standing on Waterloo Bridge between WC2 and SE1. One road southeast of the strangled baby of Maria Poulton. 2 streets south of the botched robbery of James Forbes McCallan. 3 feet west of the assault on David Morley. And close to the drowning of Annie Frimley. Coming soon to Murder Mile. Waterloo Bridge, also known as New Waterloo Bridge, carries the A301 over the River Thames, between Waterloo on the south bank and the Strand on the north. Fashioned in a box-girder design, it's made of Portland stone and is laid over 5 concrete piles which are sunk into the river's mud flats. Like many of London's bridges, it's often ignored as just a means of connection between the pricey pubs of Covent Garden, the arty twaddle of Festival Hall, the IMAX, where numpties pay twice the price to see the same film, only bigger, a small fortune to go wee on the world's slowest Ferris wheel, or for footy louts to drunkenly grunt their way towards Waterloo Station as they tunelessly massacre every single note. Built as a replacement for John Rennie's defunct Strand Bridge, New Waterloo Bridge is often referred to as the Ladies' Bridge. Constructed between 1938 and 1945, with all eligible men enlisted to fight in the war, Lind & Co. mostly hired female contractors to complete the work, whether welders, scaffolders or stonemasons. Skilled trades, which until the world was plunged into war, was only seen as a man's job. It was partially opened on the 11th of March 1942, just 3 weeks after the murder of Deptford sex worker Peggy Richards. And although, during wartime, women were invaluable to our many industries, for those in the oldest profession, prostitutes remained invisible. As it was here, on Thursday the 19th of February 1942, that Peggy Richards would die. But being a potentially political powder keg between 2 allied nations, the British legal system would put into sharp contrast who they valued the most, the soldier or the sex worker. Peggy's death began as a simple exchange between 2 strangers. One who needed money, and the other who needed sex. Born in 1897, Joseph Ralph Bradley McKinstry was raised in Hull, one of the oldest neighbourhoods of Gatineau in the city of Quebec on the southeastern edge of Canada. Known to his pals as Buck, Joseph was stockily built like a swollen testicle, with dark wisps of thinning hair, beady eyes encircled by a set of silver-framed spectacles, and not a single tooth in his head. As adhering to the odd fashion of the 1920s, he had every tooth ripped out and replaced with a set of dentures to save on dentist fees. He worked in manual jobs and was often short on cash. He wasn't much of a looker, but he didn't struggle when it came to pulling a less than choosy lady. And although he wasn't everyone's cup of tea, some said he was smooth, whereas others called him a cocky twat. In 1932, he married, but raised in an era when women were seen as little more than an appendage to a man. She is never mentioned by name, only as the wife of Joseph McKinstry. Many said that he was a good father and a loving husband. Except morally, he had no qualms about spilling his seed in a slew of sex workers when he was miles from the woman that he claimed to love. With the outbreak of war, 42-year-old Joseph was conscripted into the machine gun enforcement unit of the Cameronian Highlanders of Ottawa. We know this as the press praised his heroics, but not his inability to keep his penis in his pants. Only his glorious military career wasn't exactly the stuff of legend. On the 10th of May 1940, Private Joseph McKinstry took part in Operation Fall. With Denmark having fallen to Nazi control, Britain feared that the same fate would soon befall the Nordic island nation of Iceland. So as the British do, they decided to invade and force it to become an Allied stronghold. Fully laden with guns, bombs, and 746 Royal Marines, setting sail for Reykjavik on board 4 warships, 2 destroyers, the Fearless and the Fortune, 2 cruisers, the Berwick and the Glasgow, as well as 4,000 Canadian soldiers, with a battalion of Cameronian Highlanders on board the Empress of Australia. The Allies were ready for war. But with their reconnaissance aircraft, a Supermarine Walrus flying too low over the port, the surprise was blown. By the time this heavily armed armada had arrived, the city's people had filled the dock, ready to greet these invaders with smiles and flowers. No shots were fired, no lives were lost, and the only upset was the citizens being asked to move back,
so our soldiers can get off the destroyer.
Which politely they did. Until April 1941, Iceland was garrisoned by 30,000 bored and lonely troops, some of whom regularly used prostitutes. So much so, the Icelandic census would record 255 known offspring who were conceived between invading soldiers and Icelandic sex workers. That year, Private McKinstry and the Cameronian Highlanders were redeployed to England, trained at Sturton outside Bradford, and later stationed at the Whitley Common Camp near Aldershot. Unlike any other soldier, given a few days' leave, he would head into London's West End for spirits, sex, and sin. In every article, Joseph comes across as a husband, a father, and a soldier. Whereas Peggy wasn't even seen as a person, she was just a prostitute. What details were reported about Peggy were far from glowing. Peggy Richards was her street name, not that anyone cared. And being born Margaret MacArthur near Wallsend in Northumberland in and around 1910, she died aged 32. and yet many sources would list her age as 34, 38, 42, and even 48, but never younger. With 29 convictions for prostitution and theft, they said she lived a sinful life with an unnamed docker in poverty-strewn Deptford, and as a sex worker who spread venereal disease for her own selfish need. She was described as ugly, stout, weather-beaten, easy, and drunk. And that is it. The life and times of Peggy Richards was summed up in the public's mind by 5 cruel words, which didn't portray her as a defenseless victim of murder, but as a criminal who deserved to die. Thursday the 19th of February 1942. With the Nazis advancing, most of Europe having fallen, and the Allies in retreat, it was dark times as German bombers rained down death from the skies. 1 week earlier, the Blackout Ripper had been arrested for slaughtering 4 women just a few miles away, but it barely made the papers. Having fought with her lover on Valentine's Day, for almost a week, Peggy had slept in a slew of flea-bitten hotels, but only if her pissed-up punters could afford it. When they couldn't, she slept rough. Simply to exist, she sold her body for sex. Each day wearing the same tatty clothes. A red crepe dress, a black wool cardigan, a fake fur coat, a pair of black stockings, and a red scarf wrapped around her head like a turban. In contrast, billeted at Whitley Common Camp, where every soldier was given good food, a clean bed, and a solid wage. Having sent a few dollars back to his wife and child in Canada, Joseph and his pals headed to Waterloo in search of drink and girls. As a private, his uniform consisted of blue trousers, a tunic and a beret, with a bright red pom-pom on top, and bearing the badge of the Ottawa Cameronians. And as if it wasn't already obvious, which of these 2 people our governments valued more? Joseph carried an army-issue gas mask, and whereas all Peggy had to protect her was a half-empty handbag. That evening, Joseph disembarked his train at Waterloo Station. His pal said, "What about drinks and some women?" Joseph agreed. They purchased a pack of prophylactics and sauntered to the nearest pub. At 7 p.m, a barman at the Hero of Waterloo pub at 108 Waterloo Road saw Peggy enter the saloon bar in the company of 2 Canadian soldiers, one of whom was later identified as Joseph McKinstry. At 8 p.m, the threesome headed to the Wellington Hotel, a pub directly opposite at 81 Waterloo Road, where they drank until closing time at 10:30 p.m. and purchased a few bottles of beer as off-sales. In his own words, Joseph said, "I asked her to go out," which was common code for sex. And having stumbled into Alaska Street, a rotten unlit crevice of festering bins, scuttling rats, and puddles of urine, under the roar as trains thundered overhead, he would later state, "I had her in a doorway." He paid her £5 without quibble, and as his pal tottered back to the station, Joseph and Peggy headed towards Waterloo Bridge. That was the last time that Peggy Richards was seen alive. 3 weeks from its opening to pedestrians, Waterloo Bridge was still under construction. With no traffic, no lights, and being in blackout, it was difficult to see a few feet ahead, let alone the Black River below. Joseph would later admit to detectives, "We went for a walk. She was annoying me. I barked at her, 'Oh, shut up, you goddamn bitch.' And as we sat on the parapet of the bridge, I had her again." At 11:55 p.m, the storeman for Linton Co. and his colleagues, a lighterman, a night watchman and a GPO engineer, heard the sound of arguing on the bridge. Exiting the storeroom by the south shore door, they clambered up the concrete stairwell and spotted a lone man looking over the parapet. The storeman's torch illuminated the soldier's face and the word Canada on his tunic. The soldier, identified as Joseph, reassured them, "I'm all right, mate," stating his pals had already crossed the bridge. In his right hand was a beer bottle, as in his left hand he pushed an unseen object into his respirator case. Owing to obstructions on the bridge, the night watchman guided him to safety, and the soldier staggered north to Covent Garden. Unsure what had occurred, the storekeeper and his co-workers searched the unlit bridge by torchlight, finding only a scarf wrapped like a turban by the parapet, just 2 feet from where the soldier had stood. They shone their torches down into the black muddy river below, but they saw and heard nothing. At 1:30 a.m, Joseph was seen at the YMCA canteen on platform 15 of Waterloo Station, trying to get a chit to stay at the Union Jack Club. Being short of a sixpence for a night's bunk, a fellow Canadian soldier spotted Joseph ferreting for silver in a lady's handbag, which matched Peggy's. He was smoking a churchman's cigarette, the type that Peggy smoked, and the soldier reported him to the police. When asked by a constable, "Do you have anything in your possession which doesn't belong to you?" Joseph, who had given a false name, replied no. But when pressed, he grew petulant and threw the handbag onto the table, claiming that he had been with a woman drinking, stating, "She had hit me with a bag and then ran off." The handbag contained ration books in the name of Peggy Richards. The bottom right lens of his spectacles were cracked. His dentures had broken in half, and across his forehead was a small swelling bruise. Unable to find a witness, including Peggy, to either confirm or deny his story, being a Canadian soldier, Private Joseph McKinstry was dealt with by the Provost Marshal of the Ottawa Cameronians, but he was released without charge. Nobody was worried about Peggy's safety, as no one had reported her missing. The next day, on Friday the 20th of February 1942, at a little after 6:30 a.m, as a slim crack of dawn light pierced through the dull grey clouds, still unable to rationalise what he thought he had heard, the storekeeper returned to the bridge's parapet, where the woman's scarf was found, and the soldier was seen staring down. Alerting the police, at 9:35 a.m, a patrol boat approached the southwest foreshore under the shadow of Waterloo Bridge. Being halfway between high and low tide, face down in the silty mud, a body lay motionless. Its fake fur coat was matted, its red crepe dress was sodden, and its pale legs were buckled. Hoisted up in a wicker cradle, a police surgeon gave this anonymous woman a cursory once-over and proclaimed, "Another suicide, I suppose," stating his belief that she'd been dead for 4 to 7 days. And that was the end of Peggy's story. An unloved and unattractive prostitute who in a peak of alcoholic depression had jumped to her death. She was mourned by no one, buried in an unmarked grave, and like unwanted litter, easily forgotten. Or she would have been, had her autopsy not landed in the hands of a highly skilled pathologist who was hailed as brilliant, inventive, fastidious, and more importantly, sympathetic. At 2:30 p.m. in Southwark Mortuary, the corpse of Peggy Richards was laid on a cold marble slab before Dr. Keith Simpson. Untouched, her pale face was daubed with red lipstick, cheap rouge and river mud. And although some of her garments had been disturbed by the natural flow of the ebb tide, one stocking had slipped off. But stranger still, her underwear was completely missing. The police surgeon's time of death was wildly out, detecting a temperature of 47 degrees Fahrenheit in her internal organs. Having compared this to 38 degrees in the mortuary and a river temperature of 31 degrees, Dr. Simpson estimated that she had died 14 hours earlier, about midnight, give or take. As for this being a suicide, within a few moments of seeing the injuries to this unfortunate woman, he had notified Superintendent Rees of the CID. This is not a suicide. This is a suspected murder. Across the middle of her back were jagged scuff marks, small uneven tears similar to the dotted holes in her red crepe dress. And situated at a height of 3 feet and 6 inches from her feet, they exactly matched the hard surface of the parapet's wall. Being a sex worker, it was impossible to prove whether intercourse had taken place in the moments before her death. But a physical assault was very evident. Wiping away the mud, 5 fingertip bruises had encircled her neck, like a ghostly red hand, and the hyoid bone of her voice box was fractured. Her death had occurred just moments after she was strangled. And although her motionless body was found in the River Thames, she didn't drown. Tumbling backwards over the parapet, as Peggy's body plunged a minimum of 5.8 meters or 30 feet, the shallow muddy foreshore should have broken her fall, but it didn't. Owing to its design, directly below her was one of 5 solid piles used to support the bridge's span. Weighing roughly 12 stone, Peggy hit this 4.3 meter wide, reinforced concrete wall at a speed of roughly 38 miles an hour. Both thighs snapped, both knees broke, most of her ribs split, and her chest cavity was crushed. And although her head remained intact, there were extensive injuries to her internal organs, as she bounced off the rock-hard surface, built to survive the impacts of steel ships, and tumbled into the muddy foreshore. Alone, broken, and hopefully unconscious, Peggy died face down in the mud. Four days later, Dr. Simpson concluded it was murder. With an investigation in full swing, police swiftly questioned the stockman and his 3 colleagues of Lind & Co., the barman at the Wellington and hero of Waterloo pubs, the Canadian soldier at the YMCA, the police constable at Waterloo Station, the provost marshal and Peggy's boyfriend. having compiled a description of this unknown assailant. Stocky, mid-40s, thinning hair and cocky, with cracked silver glasses, a bruised forehead and a broken set of dentures. Wearing a blue uniform with a red pom-pom beret and the badge of the Cameronian Highlanders. Given a list of every soldier on leave in London that day, they tracked down Private Joseph McKinstry to his billet in Surrey. When he was found, he joked to his pals, "Goodbye lads, I'll see you again, if they don't hang me." Only at that point, he hadn't been informed why he was to be interviewed by the police. Held in a detention cell at Bow Street Police Station, Joseph asked, "Is your chief going to charge me with murder?" The officer said, "I don't know. You are merely detained whilst further inquiries are made." At which point, Joseph coldly stated, "I'm not going to remember too much of what happened on that goddamn bridge until I hear what he knows and what the witnesses say." He gave a brief statement, stating, "I had been with a girl, drinking. She hit me with a handbag as we came out of the pub. I got hold of it, she ran off, and I got left with it." But he denied assault and murder. With Peggy attacked on the 19th, found on the 20th, and her autopsy concluded by the 24th, Joseph was arrested and charged with her murder on Wednesday the 25th of February. In total, it took just 6 days. Given a wealth of evidence and witnesses, the trial should have been a mere formality. But with Joseph being a Canadian soldier and Peggy a British prostitute, only one life would be deemed worthy. On Wednesday the 15th of April 1942, Private Joseph McKinstry was tried at the Old Bailey for the murder of Margaret MacArthur, alias Peggy Richards. And he pleaded not guilty. The evidence was overwhelmingly weighed towards his guilt. The prosecution had her scarf, her handbag, her cigarettes and her silver coins, as well as several sightings of this very identifiable man wearing his military uniform. They had an admission, in his own words, that we drank and had sex twice. The last time being on the parapet of Waterloo Bridge, directly above where her body was found. A thorough autopsy had even proven that she had been strangled by a right-handed man, which Joseph was. And the police report even concluded there was no doubt that Joseph McKinstry was responsible for the death of Peggy Richards. On paper, Joseph McKinstry was as good as dead, and the hangman's noose would await his neck. But from the start of the trial, the defense made it clear who was worthy and who was not, arguing that her death was either an accident or a suicide. They did everything to discredit the autopsy. They disputed how Dr. Simpson could prove that she had died at midnight using only the temperature of her organs, a method which is standard practice today. They suggested that the fingertip bruises around her neck were actually crush injuries caused by logs or lumps of iron in the water, and that the blood in her liver showed that she had only survived for 10 minutes after the fall. The defense argued she could have lived for 4 more hours, which put a question mark over her time of death. The defense concluded there is no evidence that Joseph McKinstry was with Peggy Richards after 10:30 p.m, and his presence with her on the bridge at midnight can only be inferred by his statements. And that being a sex worker, they suggested that she could easily have picked up someone else, and that it was this unseen stranger who murdered Peggy. The jury agreed, and on Wednesday the 22nd of April 1942, Joseph was acquitted of Peggy's murder. The murder of sex workers, especially during wartime, was and still is seen as little more than an occupational hazard for a section of faceless nobodies slaughtered on the London streets at an often unreported rate. These women included Agnes Stafford, Mary MacLeod, Evelyn Hatton, Margaret Cook, Rita Green, Dora Friedman, Ginger Ray, Evelyn Oatley, Margaret Lowe and Doris Junet, to name but a few. Wartime juries were reluctant to convict any serviceman of a capital offence such as murder, especially Allied soldiers like Americans or Canadians, as this was likely to cause an unnecessary rift between our nations. We've seen it all before, with foreign soldiers convicted of murder, including Richard Rhodes Henley, Thomas Edward Croft, James Forbes McCallan, Henry Smith and George Brinicum, who had their executions commuted, were acquitted, pardoned, or given a woefully lenient sentence and returned home. Upon his acquittal, when police returned some of his personal property, Joseph asked, "The money found in the dead woman's handbag, can I have it?" In April 1942, Joseph returned to Canada as a free man to enjoy his life and his future. A few months later, he and his unnamed wife conceived a boy called Roland. But in January 1944, tragedy struck when a fire engulfed their home in Hull. His wife, their 8-year-old daughter and 10-month-old son all perished in the flames. And yet, sustaining just a few burns, miraculously, Joseph had escaped death again. And as with Peggy Richards, just like the law, fate would only deem his life worth saving. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to Murder Mile. As always, if you enjoyed that episode, there's some non-essential stuff after the break. But before that, here's a very exclusive message from my good friends at Cult With No Name.
Gonna make them pay. Hello, this is Eric Stein from the band Cult With No Name, and we provide all the music for the fabulous Murder Mile podcast. We thought you might like to know that our new album, our 10th, Nights in North Sentinel, comes out on July the 30th on CD and digitally on August the 13th. The CD comes with a download code, not only for the vocal version of the album, but also for the instrumental versions of all the songs on the album. And if you order it directly from our Bandcamp page, it will also be signed. You can also order it from all the usual places, and of course download and stream from all the usual digital services. Okay, bye for now.
If you enjoy listening to the Murder Mile theme tune, which I should point out is a track called Man in a Bag, available as track 5 on their album Air of the Dog, and also available as a ringtone in the Murder Mile eShop, and the track Win Some Lose Some, which is the end credits to Murder Mile that you can hear right now, as well as many other tracks used across this podcast. The full back catalogue of Cult With No Name is available via the link in the show notes. I own every album by Cult With No Name. I've been to practically all of their gigs and they are always excellent. Nights in North Senetal is their 10th album, launching on the 30th of July, and it's an intoxicating audio tour de force of joy, love and loss. I love it. As musicians, Eric and Johnny are not afraid to push the envelope, to roll out something original and different in each album, and best of all, they're really lovely people. To support local musicians like Cult with No Name, click on the link and have a listen. A big thank you to my new Patreon supporters, who are Victoria McLaughlin, Tim Newbound, Jennifer Trebon, Jessica Cheeseman and Rob Richardson. I thank you all, and if, like me, you are currently dying in the heat, don't forget that a Murder Mile mug also makes beer and wine cooler and tastes great. Murder Mile was researched, written and performed by myself, with the main musical themes written and performed by Eric Stein and John Books of Cult with No Name. Thank you for listening, and sleep well. Fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. I'm going to say it now. This heat can fuck off. Jesus. I mean, it's hot outside, but it's even worse when you're trying to record this crap and you're stuck inside a steel shell and it's 33 degrees outside. And let's see what the temperature is in here. It is 48 degrees. 48 fucking degrees. Christ, it's hot. I'm going to have to open some windows because I'm dying. And it's in... Oh, Christ. Open up. Oh man, dying. Gonna open some more windows. Oh, I don't think I'm gonna bother making myself a cup of tea because I am too bloody hot for this shit. Actually, I might make a cup of tea because I'll do one. I'm gonna make one. Yeah, bollocks. Let's do one. A nice, refreshing cup of tea in a Murder Mile mug. There we go. Oh Lord, that was too hot. Too bloody hot. You can't, in this kind of heat, you can't talk. It's impossible to. I couldn't get my mouth around words. I was just literally tripping. That's the third time I tried to record that bit that was just like that whole section because I just couldn't get my mouth around words. It's like simple words, and my mouth wasn't working. It's just your muscles don't work in this heat, and I'm not weighing a lot. I'm just wearing pants. Lovely, just a bit, some pants. I'm just dying. It's just and some bell end immediately behind me has a really annoying horn, and every minute he goes deep, and it's just like, fuck off, you sad little wanker. Sorry if people don't like foul language, but just dying at the moment. Anyway, welcome to Extra Mile, a bloody hot Extra Mile. Jeez, too hot, melting. I bought some ice the other day, and I put it in the coldest area in the boat, which is in the shower, because the shower's quite low, and therefore it's under the water level. And I thought I'd put a big fat bag of packed ice in there to cool down some drinks. Had it in there for about not even an hour. Came back, it was just warm water. Everything's too hot. Everything's melting like me. Any cheese. I've got some cheeses. They go off within a day. Vegetables off within by the end of the evening. It's too hot. Too hot. It can piss off. I know the rest of the world is baking at the moment, but for us whingy Brits, it's up to 33, 34 degrees in places. Oh dear. It was nice on Sunday because I was out having a couple of bevies. That was all right. I could handle that. But it's not nice when you're stuck inside a boat doing work. Oh, anyway, I'm a day ahead, which is good. Right, what else is going on? Cake of the day. Not that exciting, to be honest. Sugared ring donut. Yeah, they're all right. They're a bit soft. I still haven't found a ring donut that's good. It's like the ones you get at the fairground. They're nice, but they're only nice for the first 3 minutes. After that, they're horrible. Lummy. Let's pop that in there. Let's let that brew for a bit. Yeah, fairground hot dogs are delicious when they're hot and the sugar is just right. But as soon as they start to go a little bit cold, they go a bit crap really fast. Oh, I tried. Morrison's have started doing other ones. They do pink. I think a pink champagne donut. Haven't tried that yet. They do. I think it was a chocolate orange one. I tried that. Was all right. Custard ones are still the best. Still the best. Oh dear. What else is going on in the world? Looking forward to getting my new contact lenses soon, which are being crafted at the moment. Very good. So glad I went private. I finally got an appointment for the hospital through the not the private side but the other side, and they finally contacted me after 4 months and then said we've got to get you an appointment in 2 months, and I was like, well, that's 6 months, whereas the private end they've done me in 6 weeks, which has been great, and it wasn't that expensive. They tried me out with the new lenses. It's great. We got new special kind of lenses that have been designed. They're really exciting, and I popped me in my eye, and the one was really good, the other one wasn't as good. But I've got a really good eye specialist, and he's really good. And he was like, let's put you on the new machine that we got. We went around the corner and we did like multiple scans of my eyes, and then I went, we'd look at my eyes. I'm like, what's that? Where is that? My eye? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I went, which bit? And he went, that bit. And I went, what? The pointy bit? That can't be my eye. And he went, yep, that's your eye. My eyes are shaped like bullets, which is why it's hard to get lenses to fit me. But he's a really good bloke, so he's doing a great job. Have I introduced this as Extra Mile? I can't remember. It's too hot. It's too hot, people. Extra Mile, the unscripted, unedited bit, blah, 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 blah. We're going to do a quiz in a bit. I'll give you some more details. I just have a blather until my tea has stewed. What else is going on? Final tours are happening for Murder Mile as long as COVID doesn't act like a dickhead. We've got the final tours until the end of the year. So as a reminder, if you do have vouchers, the only reason I'm really keeping these tours on is to let people who have vouchers kind of use them up. But I've emailed you all if you've got valid vouchers. So as mentioned, you can either use tickets, you can give them to our mate. I can convert the money into a donation to St Mungo's charity, or I can give you the person who booked the tickets a refund, or they can go towards the new tour, which I'll be doing in the new year. Don't ask me about it now because I haven't prepped it, and I'm not doing a guest list for that yet. That will happen in the new year, so don't ask any questions about it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to join Patreon if you can. I've started a new thing on Patreon called Cake of the Week. I've rolled out a little video on social media so people can look at it and then go, ooh, and I do a little video about cherry bakewells, and I'll do that every week. But not all of them are going to go public. It's just going to be a selection of them. Ooh, a little cold breeze has just snuck in. So let's grab my tea. And then we'll do the quiz bit. Too hot. Oh. Hot. Ow. Let's put this in here. Oh. Right. Oh, lovely jubbly. Right, let's do the quiz. Don't forget, as always, details things in the quiz might not appear in the final episode because I might edit it out. This is a slightly longer episode, so I may be editing stuff out. I don't know yet. Okay, let's do this. What episode? Oh God, the heat has got to my head. I can't even concentrate. Question number 1. What was Joseph's 2 middle names? Ooh, burpees. It wasn't burpees, I'll tell you that much. Oh, sweating. And it wasn't sweating either. Question 2. What was Peggy's real name? So, as opposed to Peggy Richards, which was a street name, what was her real name? Question 3. I'm so hot, I'll probably balls up these questions anyway. Question 3. Name the 2 pubs that Joseph went to that evening. I almost read out the answers then by mistake. Question 4. What colour was Peggy? What? 4. Sorry. What colour was Peggy's dress? I missed out a big word there. Important word. What colour was Peggy's dress? Question 5. What did the storekeeper's 3 co-workers do as a job? That man with his bloody horns going off again. Sad little bastard. Just get a life.
So what did the storekeeper's 3 co-workers do as a job? There was 3 of them in total. Question 6. Which police detective was in charge of the investigation? Question 7. What was the name of the servicemen's club that Joseph was trying to get a chit to stay in that night? Question 8. Peggy lived in what part of South London? Question 9. Peggy's boyfriend did what as a job? And question 10. This is could be a difficult one, I don't know. What street did Joseph and Peggy first have sex on? Ooh, and it's romantic. I went there filming some a video for Patreon subscribers the other day, and yeah, it's very exciting. It's very romantic. It's the kind of place you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to have a bunk up down there. I'm feeling the urge." So let's dive into some extra stuff. I thought I'd explain this beforehand. So, as mentioned in the episode, in the handbag they found the ration books, which they said was in the name of Peggy Richards. Obviously, we know that Peggy Richards isn't her name, but the likelihood is that she was, because it's ration time, wartime. A lot of people, if they could, they would use different names with their ration books. Therefore, they get multiple ration books. So the likelihood is that she had ration books in her real name, which I won't mention, and in Peggy Richards as well. They said it was said that Joseph's bottom right lens of his spectacles were cracked. This may have occurred as a result of kind of an altercation between him and Peggy. We're not too sure. His dentures, a set of dentures, were found and they were broken in half. Now, when he was with the provost marshal, these were in his pocket. So we don't know whether he'd taken his dentures out, whether these were a spare set of dentures, whether they'd fallen out in an altercation with Peggy, or whether he was carrying them with him for whatever reason, maybe to get them fixed. We don't know. So I've kind of put those in there. There's a lot of kind of small details that are kind of uncertain. Oh, I'm looking at those donuts, and I'm definitely going to have one in a bit. I'm going to go down the shops later on and treat myself to something nice, because I deserve it. Maybe something cold, like, nice ice cream. Okay, so this murder happened Thursday the 19th of February 1942, which was literally just days after the arrest of the Blackout Ripper. And when you look at it as well, Joseph's trial happened at the Old Bailey roughly around the same time as the Blackout Ripper as well. I think it was 24th of April was the Blackout Ripper's one. I could be wrong. Don't care. Don't write in, because I don't care. I know someone right now was like, I'm going to find it and I'm going to email him. No, I don't care. Really don't care. Find out. Have a look. Listen to an earlier episode. You can enjoy yourself. I don't care. Some people message me about this and go, you said in Extra Mile this, but it's actually this. I don't care. That's why this is in the unedited bit. I don't care. If there's mistakes in this bit, I don't care. I don't give a shit. This is the unedited bit. If there's mistakes, good. That's the way it should be. So online there will be some videos of the foreshore where the body was found. It wasn't well listed exactly where Peggy's body was found. But I went out to the bridge and I had all the documentation with me, and I kind of found the concrete pile that was there and exactly where on the parapet she would have been. I'll post some pictures online. If you sign up to the Patreon, there's loads of pictures to help you kind of look at this carefully. But it's interesting. Like the parapet has kind of it's a stone. There's a stony structure on it, but then there's kind of a steel structure above it, and you can kind of see where she would have been standing, where he would have pushed her against the railing. It wasn't quite clear on there whether not all of the parapet was complete at that point. That's what they were kind of still working on. The road wasn't quite ready for cars to go through, but they were just about to get to the point where they would make it safe so pedestrians could kind of cross the bridge. Otherwise, you've kind of go to the other bridges, which is a real pain in the arse. The bridge was opened on the 11th of March 1942. So again, that's only about 3 weeks after the murder as well. What else is there? It's interesting. You'll see some pictures on there. The original bridge was built in 1817, designed by John Rennie, as mentioned. It was a granite bridge with 9 arches, originally known as the Strand Bridge. But after it had been there for about 60 years, they noticed it had some really serious structural defects. In the 1920s, it was closed, and they decided to build a new kind of steel structure. And what they originally did was they put the steel structure kind of to the side, and then they built it, then they put it on top of the bridge, and then slowly they got rid of the old Strand Bridge and then put in place the new Waterloo Bridge. So at one point there were 2 bridges, then there was one on top of the other, and then they entirely got rid of it. They even had to deviate the tramway, the Kingsway tramway that we've mentioned many times. They had to re-angle the tramway to make sure it could come over Waterloo Bridge, but the tramway is kind of defunct now. Peggy Richards, real name, her first criminal offence happened when she was about 18 years old, based on her CRO number. They said she had 29 convictions for prostitution and larceny, which is theft. She came from Northumberland in the northeast of England. She was 32 at the time. She lived at 23 Castell House in Church Street in Deptford, which is still there today. It's kind of a bit of a block of flats. To be honest, we don't really know that much about her, to be honest. The press really couldn't be that bothered. They all made sure that they had a slurp of tea. They all made sure that they mentioned that she was a sex worker. Many of them got her name wrong. Many didn't realise that Peggy Richards wasn't her name. I keep calling her Peggy Roberts because many of the articles call her Peggy Roberts, although her name's Peggy Richards. But as we know, it's not her real name. So yeah. As always, if it was someone famous or something like that, they would get all the details correct. But because she's a nobody, and especially because she's a sex worker, they couldn't be asked. Thank you, Coot. I entirely agree. I just wanted to dive into some extra details about Dr. Keith Simpson. So originally I wasn't going to do this case because there wasn't really a huge amount of details about there, and the stuff that was in the press, as mentioned, is complete bollocks, because they can't be asked to do the research. They would rather just churn shit out and then hope that people believe that it's true, or if they get, as press do, when they get it all entirely wrong, they will spend weeks like ripping someone apart, and then when they realise they made a mistake, they'll put on page 17 of an article in the corner, they'll go, "Oh, we wrote some articles about this person, and it turns out that they were not entirely accurate." And they'll hide it in a corner so you won't see it. So hopefully you won't realise that you're being force-fed bullshit by people who can't be asked to do their job properly. Anyway, luckily, I've got loads of books by different pathologists and people like that, and I was going through Dr. Keith Simpson's book, and I was like, there it is. And there was actually a really nice bit written by him, and mostly by his assistant, who kept a lot of the details and notes, and that's really good. So I'm going to dive, if my brain's a bit tired, so I'll balls this up. But I thought it was interesting how, even though Dr. Keith Simpson had really defined everything down, if you look at it, he'd pinned down exactly when she died to within half an hour of about midnight, which is right. She apparently she was attacked. They heard the screams at 11:55, and he said that she would have survived maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So it's in and around midnight, and he said she died within half an hour of kind of midnight, which is pretty good. And he got that by working out the temperature of her body. No one was really doing that at that point. It was kind of Keith Simpson who was everyone was doing the analysis of how kind of the forehead shrinks and the skin shrinks and things like that. They were kind of measuring the body that way, but he was the one who was going, right, it's actually the temperature of the body that it cools at a consistent rate. Therefore, if you know the temperature of where the body was and where it is now, and how long they've been there, you can kind of work out roughly when they would have died. And he, as you can see there, is pretty accurate. So I'm going to read some of the stuff from his book, taken from when he was giving evidence at the trial. So let's start. So the the defence. I'm going to get this wrong. The defence. So the defence for Joseph said, is not what you have told the jury about the lapse of time between the strangling and the crushing injuries merely conjecture on your part. The counsel asked me with a fine show of scorn. He replied, it is my opinion, but not my conjecture. Ah, you fucking wanker. So someone's going past too fast in their boat. They don't give a shit. They're on their phone, and my boat was just banged against the wall, and now my tears spill everywhere. And that little wanker with a stupid fucking hat on doesn't give a shit. Oh, people are pissing me off today. Really pissing me off. You know, the irony is, I guarantee you, he'll moor up down there. Someone will go past him too fast, and he'll be the one out going, "Oi, mate, slow the fuck down! What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck doing?" He was wearing one of those twat hats as well. Bastard. Right, where did I get to? Dr. Keith Simpson said, it is my opinion, but not my conjecture. It is an opinion based on my findings. I like it because he keeps fighting his corner on this. The defence said, so Joseph's defence said, you formed that opinion about the time of death after you heard of the charge, I suggest. Dr. Simpson said, no, my opinions were expressed at the time I made the post-mortem examination, which is good, because he's actually he even says in court, you know, his post-mortem examination notes were there and they were signed and dated exactly when it was. They were arguing about the discoloration of her skin, and the defence said, might not the post-mortem discoloration have been affected after 4 hours? Dr. Simpson said, no, this is an easy one. Post-mortem of the vessels after death, the bruising bruising in the vessels can only kind of really occur immediately after death. This was the point where the defence also said they were trying to get across the idea that Peggy hadn't been strangled, that actually she'd kind of landed, even though her face wasn't hurt at all. They said that she'd probably landed on her neck, or as she landed in the water, she was being sloshed around. It was all the heavy logs and lumps of wood that had injured her. And they said, have you seen the picture? Showing a picture of the riverbed. He agreed. He said, I'd actually been there myself. When you were looking at the foreshore, did you see any heavy logs or lumps of wood? He said, yes, wondering what was coming on. And they said, did you see any iron? And he said, no, but I could have imagined it. The flow of the tide comes heavily at this point, according to them, and he said, I have no knowledge of that, as the flow of water is not my field of expertise. Quite rightly. So they keep going back to this. They keep going back and forth, saying, do you know, she wasn't strangled, even though the marks around her neck clearly are finger marks. That's why he says they are fingertip bruises. They say no, it's like she was rolling around in the water, and it was lumps of wood that were kind of hitting her neck. Except he says, I should then expect to see signs of drowning, as the body would have been alive at the time to show the bruising, because obviously the body needs to be alive when bruising happens, because it's the circulation of the blood, whereas if a body is dead, there would be no bruising, because, you know, blood isn't circulating anymore. Once the heart stops, the blood can't circulate. So they were saying, well, suppose that the woman's body was out of the water. So they're saying, the defence was saying, her body was rolling around in the water, even though she was face down, but her head was above the water. It's just bollocks. This goes on for absolutely freaking ages. And I mean, he's doing a great job of kind of backing it up and finding faults with everything they're saying, but they're finding any reason literally to say no. You know, what they want to say is that she didn't die at 12 o'clock, which was when, you know, he would be Joseph would be found in or near that location. They're trying to say that maybe she died at 4 o'clock, you know, or a couple of hours later, which by that point they could already say, you know, he'd been he was already either made his way back to his billets, or he was in the hostel that night, the club, whose name I will not mention, because that's I got burpy hiccupies. Why is that? Oh, some Burke's walking along the canal going, "Oh, mate, oh, mate, mate, mate." Listen. They're right next to each other. And they go, "Oh, mate." I never understand it. People walk along the canal and they feel the need to shout at each other. It's like, you're right next to each other, you dicks. Oh, canal life. What else we got? Yeah, no, as mentioned in here as well, they also said, he'd looked at her liver was crushed, so he had a look at the amount of blood that was in her liver, and he determined that, as mentioned, that the kind of the heart stops pumping, therefore blood doesn't go in and out of the liver. So he looked at the amount of blood in the liver, and he said, based on the fact that her liver was crushed, she would have only survived about 5 to 10 minutes after she kind of fallen off the parapet, hit the concrete pile, and then landed in the water face down. So, hopefully she was unconscious at that point, but we don't know. But he determined that she'd only been alive for 5 or 10 minutes. He said maximum 15, that she would have survived. They suggested that, as mentioned before, that she would have been able to have survived 3 or 4 hours, although they didn't provide a doctor who was able to back that up. So a lot of the time the defence are basically just going on conjecture, which is absolutely baffling. What else we got? They keep going on about the fact that these aren't bruise marks to her neck, that she'd be injured by something by hitting and falling. But he quite rightly says if this would have happened, she would have had injuries to her jaw, given the way that she'd fallen. But she got no injuries to her jaw; it was just her chest. So what else we got? It's weird that the defence keep going on suggesting that everything that he's talking about is hypothetical, but almost everything they're doing is hypothetical as well. Which is what makes this case really fascinating, is that, there's a wealth of evidence to back up the fact that Joseph is responsible for her murder, but everything is being deflected in a way to kind of say, we need to find a way to not make him guilty because, A, he's a soldier and we need kind of soldiers fighting. B, this could be slightly embarrassing between ourselves and the Canadians. That's what it seems to be focused on. And I think a big part of this is, as I've said before, if this would have been the murder of a doctor or a celebrity or especially a politician, core lummy, there would have been a big old hoo-ha about that. But given the fact that she's a sex worker, they're just like, let's try and sweep this under the carpet. The police did a great, except that initial police surgeon who did a shit job. And you know what? There'll be great people in the world, but there'll be people who are shit at their job. The police did a great job. They pretty much wrapped this up in 6 days. They were able to see exactly what it was. They found all of the pieces of evidence to tie it together. But the problem was, this is what the defence said, that all of the evidence leads up to the fact of they were seen together at about 10:30, but no one saw Peggy after that except Joseph. The guys on the bridge, who worked for Lintico, they didn't see Peggy. They didn't see a woman there. Joseph's pal went to the train station, so apparently, according to him, he didn't see her after 10:30. We don't know where they went. There's a bit of a gap here between 10:30 when the pub shut and between 11:55 when the guys working for Lintico on Waterloo Bridge heard a scream they heard an argument. What they said was a kind of I can't remember the exact words they used. It wasn't an argument. It was kind of a to-do, probably something like that. They heard a kind of a bit of a ruction going on. They went up, but they didn't see a woman. So no one has seen Peggy except Joseph between 10:30, allegedly between 10:30 and the time of her death just before midnight. So what they did for that hour, we don't know. We really don't know. They only seem to have like a bottle of beer left. Maybe they went to another pub. There doesn't seem to be another one that we can find. As mentioned, another slurp of tea. Oh, cough, not COVID. As mentioned, a lot of sex workers murdered during the interwar years and the post-war years, many of whom we've kind of covered on Murder Mile before. So we've got Agnes Stafford in Holborn, 19th of May 1942, so just a few months later. That might be coming to Murder Mile. I'll need to look into that. Mary MacLeod in Stepney on the 25th of July 1942. Thomas Bragg was charged but found not guilty by order of the judge. I might be looking into that one. That could be interesting. Evelyn Hatton on the 13th of December 1944 in Mayfair. Eileen Cook, 5th of February 1945 over in Bethnal Green. That's in the east, I won't be. Margaret Cook, who we've covered, I think that was episode 13, over in Covent Garden, Carnaby Street. That's still unsolved. That was the one where the, again, Canadian soldier, he's in his 90s now, whether he's still alive, we don't know, on his deathbed, allegedly diagnosed with cancer, saying that he murdered her in the 1940s. But we don't know any more after that, unfortunately. But I've covered that case. Rita Green, alias Black Rita, 8th of September 1947, still unsolved. That's on, I think it's on Rupert Street, just south of Shaftesbury Avenue. I'm still hoping to cover that case, but again, there's not much about it, and the case file is held because it was believed that Rita Green, alias Black Rita, was a police informer. I've had some people get in touch with me saying that they're related to Rita Green, but every time I come back to them with the real name of Rita Green, they don't seem to reply anymore, which is fascinating. Dora Friedman, I've mentioned her many times before, Russian Dora as she's known, 5th of September 1948 over in Covent Garden on Longacre, again that's unsolved as well. Kathleen Higgins over in Regent's Park, 12th of March 1949, a 77-year-old active prostitute. Not the oldest one. If you go over to Holland, there's a pair of sisters who are in their 80s, I believe, who are still both active sex workers. Also, as mentioned, we've got Evelyn Oakley, Margaret Florence Lowe, and Doris Shuney from the Blackout Ripper. And that trial is going on at the same time as this one as well. Also, as mentioned in this episode, we've got quite a few soldiers who were acquitted or given a lesser charge for murder. So, Richard Rhodes Henley, if you go back to the guy who robbed the pornography store on crutches, he was given a death penalty, but ultimately that was removed and he was sent back to Canada. Lovely. So he came over here, committed a murder. He was about to be executed, but then obviously the British and Canadian governments went, "Oh, this is slightly embarrassing. Oh dear, we don't want a Canadian murdered on our soil. I tell you what, we'll send him back to Canada. Bye-bye." Which is lovely. I'm sure Big Al's family appreciated that. The man who murdered the unfortunate Mr. Johnson, if you go back to that episode, Private Thomas Edward Croft, found guilty of murder and being brutal. It was a brutal and unprovoked attack. If you remember, that was in a dance hall. The prosecution asked for the death penalty, but instead he was dishonourably discharged from military service. He had to forfeit his pay, and he was sent back to America, where it is said he served. He was confined for hard labour for the rest of his life. But was he? I can't find any more details about that. I don't care anyway, to be honest. Fuck him. James Forbes McCallum has mentioned this was the pub in the one that was in Covent Garden, if you remember that from a little while ago, where they had those weird screen doors on it. He put his gun through the screen door, it sprung back, and it hit him in the arm, and it killed the barman as well. Again, he was found guilty. Again, his execution was commuted. Again, he was returned home, and he was able to live the rest of his life. Fascinating. We also have, as a different one on there, the murder of William Raven. If you go back to that one, that was the kind of the gay rape one that went on. I did that with a kind of a Sherlock Holmes twist. Again, Canadian soldiers Henry Smith and George Brinicum were charged with murder, but with no evidence of premeditation. Henry was acquitted and sent back to Canada. George was found guilty of manslaughter and served 3 years at Wormwood Scrubs prison before he was sent back to Canada as well. So there seems to be a lot of there's a lot of violence going on, a lot of soldiers. It's weird because there's it's like Gordon Frederick Cummings is tried of 4 murders at that point, and British soldier, therefore they convict him and he is executed. There are other Canadian soldiers who are kind of happening around this time who have been charged with various murders. Don't forget, these are people who've seen horrific things. They've got guns on them. Things are likely to go a little bit haywire, you know. But yeah, it's weird times. It's really weird times. Okay. Oh, I think I overtalked that one. Let's go back and do the quiz questions, and then we'll wrap this up, and then I will open some more windows. And because I can't do this because I'm using the power on my laptop, when I get rid of this bloody microphone, I can put in a little fan that I've got, and I can cool myself down. Dying. Unfortunately, I only have one USB port available at the moment, so I can't put my fan. The fan makes too much noise. Don't email me with silent fans. I think people keep emailing me with very, very nice and kind of people, but people go, oh, you mentioned a silent fan. Here's this one. I go, yeah, but I live on a boat and I don't have mains power. It's like I have to keep saying this to everyone. Everyone goes, oh, you should buy this, and I go, I don't have mains power, and they go, okay, you know. It's difficult. It's difficult. A different life being on a boat. You've got to rethink everything that you're doing, and that's why a lot of people give up, because it's just not, you can't do it anymore. Because you sit here, and I was on a conference call last night, and I sweated to death because all of my power has been used for the laptop, and it was going on for ages, too long. It was going on for a lot longer than it should have been, and I was dying. And I had a little fan next to me, and I was like, sod it, I'm going to plug it into something and shove it into my face. I was dying. Oh, anyway, let's do the quiz. Answer to the quiz. Let's get ready. What was Joseph's two middle names? It was Ralph and Bradley. Ooh, lovely. What was Peggy's real name? It was Margaret MacArthur. Question 3. Name the two pubs that Joseph went to that night. It was the Wellington and the Hero of Waterloo. The Hero of Waterloo is now defunct. It was torn down in the 1960s. It used to be where the train line, just before it goes into Waterloo Station, and it was kind of on the ring road, so they kind of demolished it. But the Wellington Hotel is still there today. I've taken some video and some pictures available on Patreon. If you subscribe to that, you'll see all the videos. Question 4: what colour was Peggy's dress? It was red. Question 5: what did the storekeeper's 3 co-workers do as a job? One was a lighterman, which meant that he was a tugboat man. That's a man with a tugboat, not a man who tugs on a boat. A night watchman who worked for the bridge itself. And a GPO engineer, which is a General Post Office engineer, as in the 1940s, the post office not just delivered post, but they were also our main telecommunications contractor. Question 6. Which police detective was in charge of the investigation? His name was Superintendent Reese. Question 7. What was the name of the servicemen's club Joseph was trying to get a chit to stay in that night? It was the Union Jack Club, and that was also the same club that Richard Rhodes Henley, the Canadian masturbator, was staying at as well. Question 8. Peggy lived in what part of South London? Deptford. Question 9. Peggy's boyfriend did what as a job? He was a dock worker. And final one, could be difficult, I don't know. What street did Joseph and Peggy first have sex on? That was Alaska Street. Well done if you got all those right. Although well done if you got at least 3 right, because some of those are quite difficult. Anyway, that's cool. That's a lot to edit. Right. Oh, how much power have I got in my battery? Oh God, the day has just whizzed by. Right, I'm going to whiz through this and start editing this, and hopefully I'll be done by Friday. And I'd love to. I'm going to try and take Saturday off. That'd be lovely. Ooh. And then I think next week I'm meeting up with some friends in a pub. Oh, friends in a pub. Oh, I did that last week. I met a mate for his 50th birthday. Then I met old Beardy Face, who I was meant to meet on the Wednesday, but then we moved it to the Sunday, and then we had a couple of good beers, and that was lovely. Nice to meet people safely and socially distanced. Anyway, that's that. Hope you all enjoyed that. Don't forget to check out the new album by Cult with No Name, available, called North Thingy. Oh, I've forgotten the name of it already. Oh, Michael. It is, I'm looking at Nights in North Sentinel. I knew it was called North something. And don't forget, if you can, buy a ticket to CrimeCon, and I will see you there. Have yourself a good week. Stay safe. Be good. Lots of love. Bye-bye.